Nicholas Quirantes.
And I'm Jim Grimes. Parkland school shooter Nikolas Cruz will not be sentenced to death.
The jury coming back today with a decision to spare his life, showing him mercy. Stunned family members of the 17 victims lashing out, saying jurors failed them.
We have live team coverage tonight of the sentencing trial and the jury's recommendation. We'll also hear from the victims' families who are reacting to that decision.
We'll also hear from the defense team. This is a victory for them. And we take you live to Parkland, where the community is also reacting.
We will also hear from a juror talking about the moments after that decision had been read. But we begin with our Mike Magnoli. He's joining us live in the studio tonight.
Mike, 17 counts of murder, 7 aggravating factors that every juror agreed were proven. Why did they refuse to issue the ultimate punishment?
So, Liz, there are members of the jury, and we don't know how many, but they felt that the mitigating circumstances were important. That means the things that they heard from the defense team, how Nick Cruz had mental health issues and a difficult childhood, well, that struck a chord with them, so he will live.
One or more individual jurors find that one or more mitigating circumstances was established by the greater weight of the evidence. Yes.
Aggravating factors, mitigating circumstances. For most of us, the legal terminology is hard to decipher, but what this means is the jury is not recommending the death penalty. And in the gallery of the courtroom, Parkland families, visibly distraught, devastated, they wanted Cruz to die.
I'm disgusted with our legal system. I'm disgusted with those jurors.
There are 17 victims that did not receive justice today.
Nick Cruz is now 24 years old. In 2018, when he was 19, he went to Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland. He entered the 1200 building and used an AR-15 to kill 17 people. He told investigators he would have killed more if he could have. His weapon was shown to the jury this morning at their request. It was the last thing they saw before informing the judge they had reached a decision about his penalty.
Eligibility for the death penalty as to victim Kara Loughran. We, the jury, unanimously find that the aggravating factors that were proven beyond a reasonable doubt outweigh the mitigating circumstances established as to Kara Loughran. No.
All 17 victims becoming 17 counts of first-degree murder. And for each, the prosecution proved there were aggravating factors. Indeed, the jury found those aggravating factors to be valid and applicable, that Cruz was calculated and cruel, that he intended to cause harm to many, that he wanted to disrupt society and kill public officials. The 3 adults who were school employees can be considered public officials in this context. The jury says they agree on all of that. However, they could not unanimously agree on other parts of the case. Cruz, according to his lawyers, has fetal alcohol syndrome. His mother's drug use during pregnancy damaged his developing brain, they argued, and he had a troubled upbringing in his adopted home. The jury considered these points, and they felt that those merit special consideration. So Cruz will live.
I'm just completely devastated and shocked by this verdict. To me, what it says to me, what it says to my family, what it says to the other families is that his life meant more than the 17 that were murdered.
If the death penalty had been recommended, the defense team would have gone to the Court of Appeals, but it does not work like that for the prosecution. The state cannot try again for death.
Cover this breaking news out of the Parkland massacre today.
That's right. Our Mike Magnoli joining us out here throughout the day and right now on the desk.
And Mike, we understand that one of the jurors has written a handwritten letter to the judge. Just moments ago, you got it.
We've just obtained this. It's incredible. Right now, there is so much speculation about what was going on in the deliberation room, what was the conversation like, how did this process unfold, and this was published a short time ago on the docket. Just read some of it for you here. This is from a female juror. She says she would like to notify the judge, essentially that there were rumors swirling around that she had made up her mind before the trial started. She writes, "This allegation is untrue. I maintained my oath to the court that I would be fair and unbiased. The deliberations were very tense," she writes, "and some jurors became extremely unhappy once I mentioned that I would vote for life. Wanted to make you aware of this. If you have any questions, please feel free to call me." So this speaks to what was going on in that jury room. And if you were watching the story, Lena Salzbank's story, it seems like this juror brought 2 more on board with her.
That's what the
and
foreman
that those
said.
three, those were the voices, not unanimous decision, so then the death penalty is off the table. So yeah, per the foreman, and now piecing together what we're learning in this letter, it sounds like there were three that wanted life.
And she wanted to clarify that with the judge, obviously, because had she already gone into it predetermined that she was going to go with life, that could have caused some problems.
That would have been a huge violation. So in voir dire, when the lawyers are talking to the jurors, to the prospective jurors, it has to be honest. It has to be, can you look at all this evidence and can you make a decision at that pivotal moment? So if this person said, yes, I can do that, but had no intention of doing that, it's a huge violation of trust.
And they perjured themselves.
There has been discussion over the course of the day. You know, does it constitute perjury? Liz, I think a lot of the parents of the victims who say that word, you know, they're angry. I don't know how that would hold up, but certainly this letter giving us some insight. We're piecing it together. Sounds like three jurors didn't want to go for the death penalty.
You know, we're winding this down, but what are the key moments that stood out, at least today?
Well, I think you have to look at what the defense did when they started presenting their case. I will show a picture here. The first witness that they put on the stand, you guys might remember this, she was a woman named Carolyn Deakins. She knew Nikolas Cruz's biological mother, and she testified that they were prostitutes, that in the 90s they were on the streets, that they were using hard drugs and alcohol, and we heard her life story. And that really, really resonated with these three jurors because they believe that Nikolas Cruz was poisoned in the womb, that because the biological mother was using this drugs and alcohol, that damaged his brain and that affects how he thinks and feels as an adult. So that woman right there that you saw, she sort of set the table, and then they brought in expert witnesses to back up what she was saying. They brought her in first and then the science. So obviously that resonated with at least three jurors, Jim and Liz.
All right, Mike, thank you. We'll talk to you soon again. This is a big win for the defense, although Cruz's attorneys say it's not a time to celebrate. CBS 12's Al Pefley continues our live team coverage outside the Broward County Courthouse in Fort Lauderdale. Al?
Liz, the defense attorney tells me that any criticism is unfair to those jurors. They were asked to serve, they served, and now we need to respect their verdict.
The jurors in this case sat through a number of days of very, very difficult, traumatic evidence. And they heard it all, and they weighed it all, and they rendered a verdict. We have to respect that.
The public defender says the jury in the Nick Cruz case did its job, and this is the way our legal system works. Gordon Weeks did not try to analyze what led to their decision, nor did he say how Cruz reacted to the decision. But he said now it's time for healing.
I would also hope that this day is not a day of celebration, but a day of solemn acknowledgement and a solemn opportunity to reflect on the healing that is necessary for this community.
Weeks also had this to say to the families of the victims.
I want everyone in this community to recognize that this team appreciates, respects, and understands their loss. And with the greatest bit of sympathy, we attempted to prepare this case and present this case.
Under state law, the judge cannot depart from the jury's recommendation of a life sentence for Cruz.
The jury's verdict is final.
I asked Weeks what he anticipates will happen to Cruz next and where will he spend his life sentence.
He will be taken into the custody of the Department of Corrections very shortly after being sentenced. He will then be transferred likely to the South Florida Reception Center, processed into the prison system, and then eventually assigned a prison where he will remain for the rest of his life without the possibility of parole.
And as the public defender left the room after that press conference, I asked him if he believes that Cruz's life will be in danger once he's in prison. He did not respond. Also, he would not say if he thinks Cruz should be excluded from the general prison population for his own safety.